Yeah.
Bit of a bloody tickly throat.
Well, there's the picture. Here we go.
You're into it.
Okay. Welcome. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the 2011 Speight's Coast to Coast webinars. This is the second of 6 webinars or web seminars in recognition of the 30th anniversary of the Speight's Coast to Coast. Tonight's session will cover how to prepare for the Speight's Coast to Coast. I'll have a special guest with me in a few minutes, but first we need to look at a little bit of housekeeping. Now there's a chat room to the right hand side of your web page. If you want to make a comment or ask a question during the evening, feel free to. It's really easy. You just have to register with a login and a username or a password, so not too difficult to do. We'll try to get to your questions as soon as we can, so yeah, feel free to ask away. Okay, so who am I? Well, my name's Kelly Barber. I've done the Coast to Coast 12 times, done a few one-days, done a few 2-day individual races and the teams events, so I've seen pretty much every aspect of the Coast to Coast. I've made just about every mistake you can make in the Coast to Coast, and I've even written a book about my experiences called Conquering the Coast to Coast, which some people use as a bit of a guide. Anyway, tonight it's a real pleasure to introduce the guest. Tonight's guest is no stranger to the Coast to Coast. In fact, he's done 2 of the individual 2 days, and he's lined up again this February to do his first one-day event. He's a well-known New Zealander. His name's Dallas Seymour. He's played rugby sevens for New Zealand numerous occasions, represented us at the Kuala Lumpur Commonwealth Games and won a gold medal, was in the team with the great John Lomu. Dallas also played 3 games for the All Blacks, is married to Julie Seymour, and more importantly is the father of 4 wonderful children, and he's a Coast to Coaster. So please welcome Dallas Seymour.
Kia ora everyone.
Good morning, Dallas. Welcome.
Good to be here.
Welcome to the Coast to Coast, the Speight's Coast to Coast seminars for 2011. All right, so let's talk a little bit about your experiences in the Coast to Coast. You've done the event twice now. How did you find it?
It's a real education. I mean, one of those things I've always wanted to do. I mean, when guys like Steve Gurney and those guys were in their prime, and even now he looks like a pretty good athlete as well. Always wanted to do it. So obviously the demands of playing rugby and training for the Coast to Coast are quite different. But it's one of those things I've always wanted to do, and now I've knocked it off twice, or that almost knocked me off a couple of times as well. But just fantastic to be part of an iconic New Zealand and international event. Yeah.
And so, have you got any particular favourite parts of the event? Is there anything that you enjoy more than the other aspects? Is it the biking or the kayaking?
The kayaking is sort of one of the ones that really fascinates me, because I'm not a really confident person in the water. Not a really confident kayaker. I mean, I've got all the techniques and everything, and I know my limitations, but I do enjoy it because it's a real challenge and it's something that's right out of my comfort zone. I do enjoy the biking, but I also really love the running, because I just get gobsmacked by the sheer beauty of the Southern Alps, and that's a beautiful run up and over. She's hard work, but I remind myself that you've got to enjoy the environment you're training and competing in as well, because it's right on our doorstep, and it's a fantastic piece of the countryside, and here we are, running through and taking it all in.
Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, I guess that's one of the things that draws many people back to it year after year. Is not just the challenge, but the beautiful scenery and being out there in it. So, what do you do for a job then? You work for Spark, I think.
Yeah, work for Spark these days as a relationship manager. So I look after mainly sort of the multisport side of things, but I'm also looking after regional sports trusts and just provide a support role right across Spark, and we're sort of the go-between between the community sports sector and the guys at Speight. So we sort of try and play that go-between role, really.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Okay, well, you're out there and you're living it. You're you're doing the job. Let's talk about the Speight's Coast to Coast. Okay, so we're going to cover a couple of things today. with Dallas. We're going to talk about finding a mentor, how to prepare for biking and a bit of the running, and then maybe talk about the importance in the end of going long. So let's talk about finding a mentor. Who was your mentor, Dallas, in your preparation for the Coast to Coast? Did you have someone who gave you a bit of advice and along the way?
Yeah, it's funny because a really good friend of mine and colleague at Speight, I was talking about doing the Coast to Coast for a number of years, and he said, "Well, you got to get up and do it, mate. Don't be a pussy and just talk about it all the time." So yeah. He'd signed up, and funnily enough, and I signed off pretty much. I think the day after him, and he's done. I think the team event. He's done the longest day, done the 2-day as well. So, and he's a bloody fit bug, and he's one of those. He's a real hard case, really fit. Richard Lindsay's his name. So if you do catch him, he also works at Spark as well, as I said. But he's done it before, so did a lot of training. We talked lots about the sort of volume you need to do. Actually, one of the things that got me inspired as well was actually reading Kelly's book. And if you haven't got his book, not necessarily trying to make a plug so he makes more money, but I'd love for him to do it. But it is a fantastic book. I mean, I think I read it in 2 days. But the combination of my mate Richard and reading Kelly's book just gave you a whole insight to being a newcomer into the race, and couldn't have done anything better really. And with my mate Richard having that experience of the Coast to Coast, what to know, the transitions, all that sort of stuff, nutrition, the sort of training you have to do, they can give you all the insights of what you need to do and give you that confidence really, because it's a huge challenge, but it's not insurmountable. Yeah,
it certainly is a big challenge, and you're right, it's not insurmountable, but it certainly helps to have a bit of advice. I myself had a 62-year-old was giving me advice. His name was Don Dawson. He'd done the Coast to Coast I think 11 or 12 times by the time I met him, and he just sort of gave me a lot of advice around choosing the right kayak and the right paddle and how to train and how to get those things right. And I think it's really important to talk to people. So if you can, look for a mentor. There's lots of places you can get that advice from. You can read books. It's always quite handy if you can find someone who can lead you through the process, someone who's been there before, and answer those questions that you have as they come up. So speaking of questions, let's have a look and see. So we've got the first question is, ask Dallas how many times he's paddled this year.
After the race, once. So I'm well behind the 8 ball, and that's probably my mate we went down with a couple of weeks ago. And actually a point that, and speaking of paddling, a point that Kelly made in terms of kayak, I borrowed a friend's kayak the first year, and did a lot of researching into kayaking in terms of what model suited me, and I got one for my skill level. Rather than trying to get a fast kayak, I mean, you're no good if you're sitting underneath the water rather than on top of it. So I tried a number of different kayaks out, and I've got a nice big wide good entry level kayak that's good for my body size, because I'm bigger than a lot of athletes that are doing the Coast to Coast. It suits me. I've only tipped out I think twice going down the river so far, and I've just I guess sort of I know, again, as I said, number limitations. It's a really nice stable kayak. It's got great manoeuvrability. And it's treated me really well. So if that's the best advice I can get you. Obviously, the bike's going to be good, shoes going to be good, but if you're spending most of your time upside down in the water and pulling your kayak out of the water, you've obviously got the wrong kayak for yourself. So get the right kayak, get the good advice, and get one that actually suits your abilities, because that's going to make the race a lot more enjoyable as well. Yeah, look,
and I think that's a really, really important point. I know I only had a limited budget to spend in my first year, and I spent most of it on a kayak. I chose an Eclipse, and it was good and stable, and it got me through the race. I wanted to move on from it fairly shortly after that, but choosing a kayak is important. And if you have a good mentor, someone who can give you advice, they'll tell you hopefully similar things. I know there are other, you can read up about the event. Obviously you can read Conquering the Coast to Coast, the book that I wrote, but Steve Gurney's book will give you a lot of insight as well. And there's a number of other articles that have been written over the years that give good training advice. Okay, so let's talk a bit about biking, Dallas. Obviously the three main components are the 55k bike on the first day, and then a 15k bike at the start of the second day, or if you're in the one day, it's the same day. And then a 70k bike back into Christchurch. That's totals up about 140 k's worth of biking. So I guess it goes without saying that if you're doing the one day, you should be prepared to be able to ride at least 140k in a day. If you're doing the 2-day, you might want to look at making sure that you can do around sort of 70 k's a day, 80 k's a day, and cope with that quite comfortably. I guess one of the first things you need to do is to get your bike set up properly. How important was that for you?
Absolutely. I bought my bike about almost 10 years ago now, and they sort of when I bought it, they did a quick setup, and I got it from a mate in Wanganui, and it took me about maybe a year and a half to actually go into a bike shop in Wellington, and I said, look, and I think they did it for about $10. It was really, really cheap, but get someone to set yourself up, because what it does, when I came out of it, the difference it made was huge. You might have made a few adjustments, maybe 3 or 4 adjustments to my seat, the position of it, how high it was and that sort of stuff as well, and how it was cranking down onto the pedals. And when I came out of the bike shop afterwards, it felt like I was 10 feet tall and sitting, well above. It felt like I was in a Hummer. Yeah. And just made so much difference to my biking. So get your bike setup done really well for you, because if you just buy a bike off the rack, you don't know what you're doing, I guess. And there's a whole lot of technical things which you don't know. So if you can go and find someone who's got that technical knowledge, you don't know what you don't know. So go out and get someone to actually teach you to do it. And that's the same with my kayaking as well. And don't be afraid to ask questions, and just ask the dumb question, because you're going to get the answers, and that's going to make a huge difference to your biking, because you'll get so much power down onto the wheels and out the back, which is what you want to do. Exactly.
I think that's a really crucial point. Having the bike set up properly makes a massive difference. I know when my bike was first set up for me, I was told that as a runner, it was better to set it up a certain way, and I think it was with the seat slightly further forward, so that I could get off the bike and run well. So that proved pretty useful. It goes without saying that it's a good idea to get some bike bunch riding experience. Steve Gurney talked about the importance of that. Even 2 or 3 people, it's good to get used to being around people. I think another thing that would be quite useful to do would be to practice changing tyre, assuming you got a puncture. Tyre pressure, what did you have your tyre pressure at?
I have them just under what the maximum is about. I normally set about 110, 115 psi. Yeah, and that's perfect. And going on from Kelly's point as well. Do your mileage, but also get some advice around what are different programs, because just going around doing the same sort of riding day in day out is boring, and it's not really motivating. So you probably want to do some different programs. They get a lot of hill work in, which builds your strength. Do some repeated sprints now at a high gear. Some of the programs that Steve Gurney puts out for beginners, follow those, because it gives you some great ideas, and you'll make bigger gains in a shorter time if you follow those sort of programs and listen to people who know what they're talking about. Preparing for the race, I always take my bike in, a couple of weeks out, and get it totally serviced. I get them to replace all the brake cables, so they're taking the chance out of breaking a cable. I get them to check my chains, I get them to lube everything up and make sure everything's spick and span. I'll normally put 2 new tyres on, so it takes out the risk of having stuff sitting in the tyres, or little bits of glass that have worked their way in and you can't see. Get all the rims and everything checked out, so they leave nothing to chance, because you don't want to be spending all the day or half a day changing tyres and losing. You could lose 10 to 15 minutes changing a tyre. And also I got all those little gas canisters. 16 grand, you just pump them in, bang, you put your tyre on, it saves 4 or 5 minutes or even more pumping up. So get your bike checked out and do your programs right. Yeah, no, I think that's a very good point. My own experience has been that in 12 races I've only had 1 flat tyre, and that was with buying pretty much new tubes every year, and sometimes new tyres just about every year as well. It does get expensive, but when you figure you're paying a lot of money to do the race, you're putting in a lot of time and a lot of effort for this one shot, it makes sense to have your gear working properly. And I know some people use race wheels, so that they just put them on for the race, and they don't train on them. That's quite sensible as well. I know Steve Gurney was a big advocate of buying brand new tubes and tyres. Okay, well, there's a couple more questions coming up on the screen. Let's have a little look at those. Somebody says, hi guys, I'm travelling from Ireland for the race, and just wondering, is there access to the river and the mountain run in the week leading up to the longest day, and if so, do I need a permit? I don't think in New Zealand you need a permit to go over our national parks. You're welcome to train in the week leading up to the race. I don't know whether you'd want to do too much.
one of the things that my mentor told me was that a lot of people turn up to the Coast to Coast very tired from overtraining, and I think an important thing to realise is that probably in the last 2 weeks you're not going to do a lot to add to your training, but you might ruin your race by doing too much in that last 2 weeks or so. Some people say 3 weeks. I think 2 weeks is probably close enough.
Yeah, I think as well. If you're gonna, if you come over 2 weeks out from the race, make sure you get through the river at least once and do the run at least once. Part of it's for navigation and just knowing what you're getting yourself in for. Yeah. And also the river, you don't know what the conditions are. So I mean, both years I've been down. I've gone down the river at least 2 or 3 times with other guys. And it makes a real difference because you know where the critical points are, where you're going to be tested, and how to keep yourself safe and enjoy the race so you know what's coming up.
Yeah. There's another good question there. How do you pee in your kayak? Well, I suppose...
Very easy, just let it go, bro.
Very easy.
Just make sure you warn your crew at the end when you get to the end of the kayak. Look, guys, it might be a little bit of extra liquid in there, it might smell a bit, but...
Exactly, you don't want that over your shoulder. It's happened to Tony, one of the guys of my support crew in the first year. So
there's actually another good question up there as well. What kind of pants do you wear? Lycra tights for the run. I wore bike shorts, but the first year I did it, I actually... Going through the water, you're probably better off to buy a tighter pair of Lycra pants than your normal pair, because what happens when you go through the water, they get saggy and they droop down, and what happened is the whole bottom half of my cheeks on the first day last year, the first time I did it, were all red raw. So of course I did a 150k ride the next day, and I couldn't sit down for a week. So my whole backside was just red raw from chafing. So make sure you get good tight pair of Lycra pants, because they're gonna loosen up during the day. So and it's bloody comfortable. I mean, just get used to running in tights. Don't worry about the package hanging out there. Just get out, because I mean, if you're running in normal shorts, you're going to get chafing and all sorts of problems. So just stick with normal bike shorts. And again, spend a little bit of money and buy a decent pair and a good race pair, because they're going to serve you well. It
does pay off to have those Lycra shorts. I think they make a huge difference. I've chafed many times. It's not pretty. And another thing that I've noticed, if you just change your top or something like that, and you can get quite a bit of chafing in the nipples, which is no fun. Okay, so what's the best training for the mountain run? Well, probably the best training for the mountain run, asked by Phil, is actually getting up in the mountains. There's no substitute for actually going over the course. Obviously, that's not always possible if you're out of town. The next best thing is to get out in the bush and to run in the hills, find bush tracks and do tramping. In fact, it's probably just before we move on and talk about the run, Dallas, I just want to bring up a point that John Hellemans told me years ago, which has been really useful. John Hellemans was Aaron Baker's coach. He's a bit of a legend of New Zealand and world triathlon. And when I asked him how much biking I should do, I said, primarily I'm a runner. How much biking do you think I should do? And John said that you need to do enough biking to make sure that it doesn't ruin your run. So you've got a good 2 hours of biking to do, or an hour and a half, hour and 3/4, depending on your ability, before you actually start the mountain run. So if your running is good, you need to do enough biking to protect it and to be able to use your strength. You're not going to be able to use it if you're exhausted from the bike ride. Yeah,
and another good point there as well around, I think Kelly made the point around doing some bunch riding as well. If you get the volume in on your bike, you're going to enjoy it, because when you're in a bunch, especially in the 2 day, there's larger bunches, so you can sit back in the back and have a bit of a rest. Yeah. And don't push yourself too early. I mean, it's no use being a hero on the first ride and doing a whole lot of work up the front and just wrecking yourself. Yeah. So that's probably the first point. They do enough riding so you get comfortable with it. With the bunch riding as well, that's a really crucial part of it. You've got to be comfortable and know, again, what you should be doing in the bunch. I mean, I've been in so many situations where guys just slam on the anchors when something happens up in front of them. You hardly ever you shouldn't ever touch your brakes unless you just touch on them lightly in a bunch ride, because you hit your brakes, the person behind you is going to cop it, and then you cause a big bloody pile up. So again, talk to guys who are cyclists. Go out and even go to a cycling club and ask if you can join in their bunch rides and just learn from the guys. There's a lot of yelling going on, and just basically people communicating, because you need to know what's going on. Don't get overawed by it. It is a little bit. It seems like people are yelling at you, But if someone's telling you what to do, they're yelling at you because they want you to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it keeps you safe as well. So you don't get uptight, and again, you enjoy the race, and it's just people communicating with each other.
Yeah, it's good communication at the end of the day. There's a couple of questions here that are quite interesting. What do you use for the 15-kilometre ride to the river? Some people use carbon plates or make their own plates. Some people use mountain bike shoes. Some people use normal cycling shoes, and then you've got to remember that you have to run about 1 kilometre down to the river. So I've done it in cycle shoes before. It's not quick, but at least you can keep moving and you don't have to change anything. Another good question from Josh for Dallas. Is Sevens training as tough as the coast-to-coast training? Well, I guess you've been under some pretty tough sessions with Mr. Gordon Titchens. So it's a different kind, I suppose. Yeah,
I mean it's I've been to places and it actually with Titch, you know, that I thought I'd ever go, you know, in terms of the amount of training you do. I think the biggest training session we had with Titch was 6 hours, and you know, your lungs are heaving, your legs are burning for the whole 6 hours, and the guys just, you know, smacking the shit out of each other at the end of the training. But he's, you know, that's actually served me well, because I know within myself, even though I don't train to that level now, I've got that knowledge that I can actually go to that level and still keep pushing through. And it certainly helped me on my first coast to coast, because I pretty much the whole run, after about the first hour, I hit the wall, and the brakes went on. I just couldn't get out of a jog walk for the whole race on the run. Really struggled. But I knew that I'd just keep going, because I've been to that place again before. So the training is obviously different. I mean, it's a lot more power stuff and just repeated speed and just going. There's a lot of the muscular stuff needed there. But in saying that, some of the power work that I did in rugby is actually still helping me out now. But you've just got to get volume and be used to running, you know, for having a consistent effort over 5 or 6 hours. You know, and if you're doing the longest day, you know, you're doing, you know, 16, 17 hours sometimes. So the more volume you can get in, then the more I've got to say, and I say to myself, I mean, I'd rather hurt now and put myself through a bit of pain now, rather than hurt in the race. So that's my philosophy. So the more benefit I can get on my training now, it's going to help me in the race. So volume is good, but also, you know, being able to mix it up as well with different types of runs, and up and down hills or flat, fast, interval training, that sort of stuff as well, and the same on the bike.
And I think that one of the points that I was going to make about running is that often training for time is quite a good idea. Running for time, set yourself a time to run. I'm going to go out and train for 2 hours, not a minute less. And I always found that the mental toughness required when you decided beforehand to run for 2 hours, and you get to 1 hour 45 and you really had it, just pushing yourself that little bit further always comes in handy, not just in this race but in life in general. And
also with the run as well, I mean, because a lot of us live in urban areas, there's only roads and tracks and that sort of stuff, so it's not really the same sort of race. I mean, when you do run on the rocks and the river run through the coast, I mean, it's totally different, and it just wrecks your feet. So what I do, you know, even with running around, say, Burwood Forest down here in Christchurch, is sometimes rather than running on the track, I'll actually run off track, and you're jumping over stumps and branches and leaves and all sorts, so you're not getting into rhythm, which is just like you do in the race.
Right.
Even running around the roads, I'll run on and off the curbs, so you're actually challenging yourself. So I mean, it's easy for me to run, you know, 10 k's on the road, but to do it off and on the curbs and weaving around and jumping over, you know, fences or whatever the case may be. You know, it just challenges, and the amount of effort that goes into it just shows you what'll actually happen on the race. So you're actually used to it, because it's a really there's some rugged stuff there, and it's really rough.
Yeah, it's valuable. I mean, this morning, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but I went for a run around my local area, and one of the things I do is I go to the local playground and climb up this kind of jungle gym. Down to the bottom and then up again, and then carry on running. And it's that's the sort of thing you do in the coast to coast. You're clambering over rocks. Just while we're talking about running, I just want to make sure that everyone knows what we're talking about. You run 3 k's up from the beach on the flat, you jump on your bike for 55 k's, and then you're going to run 33 k's over a mountain. And there are very few kind of long flat sections. It's mostly in and out. You're in and out of a river, you're climbing over things, and probably good preparation for that would be tramping, as Dallas mentioned, off-road running, walking, jogging up hills, getting used to running in wet feet. It sounds simple, but it's quite different running when you're going through rivers and coming out the other side and with your shoes full of water. It does take a little bit to get used to, but once you've done it a few times, you can get quite comfortable with it. Someone asked a question, what are good places to train near Christchurch, and someone mentioned Mount Somers near Methven. That's a very good place. I think it's about a 24k loop. Another question that someone asked is, my team kayak mate has just pulled out. Any advice on finding a replacement this close to the race? I think if you look on the Coast to Coast website, there's usually a section where you can look for someone to join you at short notice. There's usually a few people who are quite prepared to do that. So if you get out there and you can and ask, I'm sure you'll find somebody sooner or later. Another good one is actually sportshub.com as well. There's some really good panel discussions on there as well. So jump on there, and it's a multi-sporter's paradise in terms of a whole lot of knowledge, and there's trading stuff, so you can buy kikes and all sorts on there as well. But go on there because there's a lot of forums on there. You can actually pick up, people who actually wanting partners or wanting to do the race. Yeah. Okay. Any more questions? Feel free to ask. Okay. So, any other things that you'd like to add about the running? The one thing that really sticks out to me. For me, it's a run of 2 hours. Running up to the Goat Pass is actually the easier part of it, because by and large, even though it is rough, it's actually probably the smoother part of the race. Once you get down the other side, you're running across across logs and really uneven territory. In the last 5k, you're running on the riverbed, and that's really, really hard. And it's if it's a hot day like it has been for the last 2 years, running along all those white rocks, it really takes it out of you. And just that mental capacity to get through those long runs on river rock is quite tough. So you've got to be mentally prepared for that as well. There's another good question just come up. What kind of training would you be doing at this stage? Well, I guess 2 months out from the race, you would be wanting to do pretty much long, slow sessions. The longer, the better. 2 to 3 hour bike rides, 2 to 3 hour runs, say, I guess once a fortnight, depending on how seriously you want to take the race. There's no substitute for distance. You do what you can, but at the end of the day, if you can get out and do long sessions, they're the ones that are going to be the most useful when it comes to the actual event. And one other thing with that as well, like a lot of us, you're either busy as a parent, you're busy with work. None of us works 40-hour weeks these days, and so there's actually you don't have a lot of time to get out and do that quality training or put in the amount of training. And the way I substitute for that is I'll do interval runs where I go out and I do a 10-minute warm-up, say, and just do 7 minutes as hard as I can, have a 3-minute rest, and just repeat that 5 or 6 times. So if you've only got an hour, for instance, you'll do 5 sets. So you're pushing yourself really hard, and you'll get more benefit out of it, and you can actually put a lot more volume in, rather than if you haven't got 3 or 4 hours to go for a long run. That's another way of actually getting you're not going to pound yourself too much, and again, try and run on the grass as much as possible if you can, to avoid injury. Injury, but also that actually helps build your stamina up as well, and your strength, and you get a lot more benefit out of your training as well. Another thing I did do was if you can do any type of circuit weights, it's going to be great for you, because it gives you it gets your muscles all keyed up, and it's just again another good exercise to strengthen your body up, and it actually builds a lot of strength and power into your training as well. No, that's some really good points there, Dallas. Okay, so anyway, I think we'll sort of start to close up fairly shortly. I guess the key thing is to be as specific as you can in your training. Get out and ride with other people, ride for long periods of time, get out and run over rough ground. Prepare by preparing yourself in the most specific way you can. It's the bush and over rocks and in rivers that you're going to be running, and up hills. So go out and do that type of preparation. There's another good question up here as well, which is from Andre, what kind of solid salty foods can you take for the run and kayak? For me, the first year, I pretty much I went on just leptin gels and liquid, and it just killed me. For me personally, it didn't work. I got bloated. A lot of that gel stuff makes you fart pretty much.
And for the whole, I think, second half of the run, I was just bloated and over, just couldn't get. I was chucking heaps of liquid in, and just really almost hit the wall on the run. Yeah. And what I did the second year, I think for guys like me and my size, I guess it's about having some solid food as well. So I got a really good, I think it's Manuka booster bars, which they take a bit of chewing, but they're all natural. Got a bit of honey in them as well. Great bar for me. I mix that up every half hour. I had my watch set. Every half hour I'd chuck some food in, even if I didn't feel hungry. I'd take that as well. So I substituted between. I rolled it 30 minutes on and off between gels. And when you're running on the run, there's plenty of water there in the rivers to mix it up. And every other 30 minutes, I'd eat either half or a whole bar to make sure you had something in your stomach. Took a protein bar as well.
It's good to have that solid food, eh?
Absolutely. Can't. And have bananas. I mean, sometimes it's actually good to have some salty food as well. A mate of mine just has boiled potatoes, chuck salt on them, because when you're eating sweet stuff all the time, it drives you bloody nuts. So it's actually,
it does, eh?
There's a pork crew, and they're having some boiled potatoes with salt, or just even a handful of salt and vinegar chips or something like that, just to get your taste in.
Yeah, actually,
it keeps your salt up.
I've really craved sort of chips and things like that towards the end of the one day. You bring up a really good point, though. We should just amplify that point about gels and things like that. If you're going to do that, make sure that you've practiced it in training, because it will make things a lot easier on the day. You don't really want to be changing things around or messing with them too much. Yeah,
another thing for me, I sweat heaps. Lose a lot of salt. So one of my colleagues at work is a nutritionist. So I just basically picked their brains about my whole nutrition plan. And we only changed about 2 or 3 things. One was getting the solid food in, which is if it works for you, great, and find out what works for you. But also she put me onto a product that I think it was a haulage product for electrolyte, and it had miles more sodium than any other product that's on the market. And that for me, and it does. You can actually taste the salt in the drink, and that's going to serve you really well if you're a person that sweats heaps as well. And drink little often, as much as you can.
A little often. I think I mentioned last time was that Chris Cox, who was the record holder for the run and who's been over it 500 times and runs his own trips over there, said that his times really improved out of sight once he started drinking the equivalent of about a cup of water every 20 minutes. So that's probably a useful guide to go by.
Probably one more thing for the newbies that are on the race as well. Work out your plans with the support crew at your transition, because the first year we went there and everyone was just running around like a headless chicken, and they sort of knew what to do, and I knew what I wanted, but I hadn't communicated with them, so they had no idea what my thinking was. This year I had a plan for everyone that I had set out. I had full support crew. They all had a list of jobs and all the list of tasks that they had to sign off when they got to the transition, when I came, and what I wanted, in terms of what food I wanted.
That's superb.
And just had everything laid out. So compared to last year, compared to this year, it was chalk and cheese. This year was fantastic, because they knew what they were doing. They knew what their tasks were.
You learn so much.
And so you're basically giving out what you think you're going to be on the day, and they can run through that plan. It actually supports you so much. It's a much better way of doing things. So have those plans, and they're written out. I had them in sheets, so they all had the names on them. These are your tasks, bang, 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 and they just followed through with them, and it was just so much easier. If we needed to get something, everything was there, right at your fingertips.
Okay, another good question from Phil. Do you do any training with packs and weights? That's a really good point, because you do have to carry emergency gear and a fleece and a hat and gloves and a few other bits and pieces. So it's actually quite good to go for your longer runs, maybe with a bit of a pack on. I know a chap who's a really good adventure racer, and he trains with a 9 kg pack on his back. In the actual race, he only uses a 3 or 4 kgs on his back, but he's so used to carrying that heavy weight that he feels like he's flying when he's out in his actual races. Amazing.
A lot of those things, it's about getting used to it. I mean, a lot of it's a mental game, and if you feel like, if you put a pack on, you think, oh god, it's so bloody heavy, and you haven't done it before, it's more of a mental game. I mean, physically you're always going to get through it, and it's just a matter of saying to yourself, right, I can do this. So if the more you train with it and sort of get yourself into race mode, then the more when you get out there you think, well, actually I've done this before, I've been here, so I've got confidence in my own ability, so you can actually get out and do it. So certainly I'd say, and get used to the water sloshing around, because that can actually sort of put you off as well. So do that, and actually practice drinking while you're running, because sometimes you're puffing. Do your food when you're out running as well, so you're actually used to it when you get there. It doesn't bring up any surprises for you.
There's no substitute for actually doing it.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, we really should just answer a couple more questions very quickly before we finish off. Are dolls' clothes allowed? Yeah, some people in the past have taken miniature clothes in their pack. When it says you've got to take full length polypro, they mean it.
Yep.
Yeah, and some
absolutely. I mean, it's if you get caught out there and you're cold, you can cool down bloody quickly. I think another good one there. What kind of drinking system in the kayak? I've got a bag.
Yeah.
A drinking system actually set in the kayak, which you can put on my electrolyte in. But I've also got a tube that's drilled for the hull and it goes straight into the water. I mean, beautiful water. If it's running high, I mean, don't worry about the grit.
Yeah.
It actually saved me the first time I went down with the guys a couple of years ago. It saved me because I actually popped my bag. The connection flew off, so I lost all my juice into my kayak, and lucky I had my tube into them, and I just survived the water. So you can survive on water just through the race, but it's better to have a backup system, or you can even take hook a cup onto your kayak vest, onto your PDF, and you can just scoop it into the water.
Actually, that's really handy. I've used the cup before.
Yeah, always have a fail safe. I mean, if something goes wrong. Like I had this little coat hanger so I could hang my cup onto my vest. I was running through the run and I had some electrolyte and just scoop it up as went along and had a drink and snapped it onto my vest. So something else.
You've got to try them, eh? Because I put a cup right on my waist once and I was trying to climb up a rock and it kind of got caught between my thigh and my stomach and I kind of fell back down the rock. Okay, so we should move on. It's time to pick it up. First, I'd just like to thank Speight for sponsoring this again and putting these things together for us, and particularly want to thank you, Dallas, for coming along and joining us and sharing your wisdom over a couple of good Speight's coast to coast, and good luck with this race. I hope it goes well and you enjoy it and make it to the finish.
Absolutely,
and get that wonderful feeling. If you want to tell your friends about the next webinar, that'll be probably, I think it's December the 8th. With me as guest will be Emily Miazga, who's a 3-time winner of the women's coast to coast, the one day, a tremendous athlete, and she's a nutritionist, so she'll be able to answer any questions you have about that. So once again, thanks for coming along. I hope you've enjoyed it and found it useful. Thanks for the brilliant questions you've asked, and thanks to Dallas for coming along again. Cheers,
and all
mate.
you guys training out there, go hard and enjoy it.
That's the final word. Enjoy it. All right. We're done.